Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Journeyman Podcast. We are back with episode 42, and today we're going kind of deep into a world that most of us, I think, only really see in the movies, the Mafia.
Yeah.
But you know what? Today's story, it isn't about, like, the romanticized gangsters or anything like that.
Right.
This is about some brutal realities of, their code, their loyalty, and the devastating consequences, I think, of violence.
Definitely. And you know what better way, I think, to explore that world than through the words of someone who lived it?
Yeah.
We're talking about Sammy the Bull Gravano, a former high-ranking member of the Gambino crime family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he paints a very vivid picture of this life. And today we're focusing on two incidents he recounts that involve his associate, Joey Sty D'Angelo.
So if anyone wants to check out the full interview,
Yeah.
the link to the Soft Wet Underbelly video is in the episode description.
Definitely check that out.
Yeah. Seriously worth subscribing to their channel. They have some incredible stories.
It is.
But for now, buckle up because this is going to be a wild ride. Gravano starts by talking about Sty wanting to kill a guy named Johnny Santiago.
Yeah.
It seems pretty standard for a mobster, right?
Well, except the reason behind it kind of reveals this fascinating clash between personal codes and the Mafia's rules. Santiago had an affair with Sty's brother's wife.
Oh, geez.
And Sty felt this intense need to avenge the perceived dishonor.
Right.
But here's the thing. There was no violence involved in the affair. The woman was willing.
And that's where Gravano pushes back.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, wait a minute. This isn't killing offense.
Right.
It makes you realize, even in a world built on violence, there are lines, these internal rules, that dictate when bloodshed is deemed acceptable.
Exactly. It's a very crucial point because it challenges the stereotype of mobsters just being purely cold-blooded killers.
Right.
Gravano, as ruthless as he was, had his own moral compass. I mean, a twisted sense of ethics, maybe, but one that factored into his decision-making.
So he tries to talk Sty down, emphasizing that any hit needs permission from higher-ups.
Yeah.
That going rogue could have serious repercussions.
Oh, yeah.
But as we know from the title of the video, how one bullet kills a whole family,
Right.
things don't exactly go as planned.
No.
Sty, driven by this fierce loyalty to his brother, ignores the warnings and commits the murder anyway.
And that's where Gravano finds himself in a real dilemma.
Yeah.
He disapproved of the hit, but he's also bound by his duty to the crew, to the omerta, that code of silence and loyalty that holds the Mafia together.
So what does he do? He basically becomes an accessory after the fact, right?
Exactly. He orchestrates a meticulous cover-up, cleaning the car, disposing of the gun, making sure Sty eliminates any trace of evidence. It's almost chilling, the level of detail and planning that goes into erasing this act of violence.
Oh, yeah.
And it highlights the weight of responsibility that comes with leadership in the Mafia. He's protecting Sty, protecting himself, and protecting the organization as a whole.
It's a lot.
It is.
But years later, this act of loyalty comes back to haunt him when he's cooperating with the government.
Yeah.
They inform him he'll be charged as a conspirator because of his role in the cover-up. Right.
It's a perfect example of the unforeseen consequences of actions, especially in a world like the Mafia, where one seemingly isolated event can set off a chain reaction.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating how his attempt to prevent further violence by covering up the murder ultimately backfired and implicated him further.
Yeah.
Almost like a dark twist on the butterfly effect, right?
Uh-huh.
One unauthorized hit ripples outward, creating chaos.
Absolutely. And this is where the story takes another turn, revealing even more about Steve's character and the complexities of loyalty in this world.
Oh, wow.
Years later, he finds himself at Tally's bar with his girlfriend, who Gravano affectionately calls Betty Boop.
Okay.
And a tense situation unfolds when a muscle-bound member of the Columbo family walks in.
And this guy, who we later find out is named Andrew Mush, starts harassing the widow of a bar owner connected to the Genovese family.
Right. It's a clear violation of territory, blatant disregard for the unwritten rules that govern these families.
And Sty, true to his nature, steps in to defend the woman. He doesn't physically attack Mush, but he verbally confronts him, asserting his authority, making it clear that this woman is under their protection.
It's interesting because it's not even about brute force. It's about respect, sending a message that you don't mess with their people.
Yeah.
But we know this world operates on a different level of violence.
It does, and that becomes tragically clear. A short while later, Mush returns to the bar and without hesitation shoots Sty in the head.
And this sudden act of brutality triggers an immediate and visceral reaction from Gravano.
He rushes to the bar, witnesses the horrific scene, and is just overwhelmed with grief and rage.
Oh, wow.
He goes to the morgue even though he's warned about the condition of the body. He intercepts Sty's wife to prevent her from seeing her husband's remains. It's a heart-wrenching display of his devastation.
Yeah.
But beneath that, there's another emotion brewing, the thirst for revenge.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 2. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying the dive into this story, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Journeyman Podcast. When we left off, things were getting so tense. Gravano, consumed by grief and anger, was ready to unleash fury on anyone connected to Story's murder.
It seemed like all-out war with the Columbos was inevitable.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, the raw emotion in Gravano's recounting of this moment is palpable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But before we jump into the fallout, let's rewind just a bit to that meeting with Andrew Mush.
Okay.
Remember, Gravano owed him a significant amount of money, $90,000 to be exact.
Yeah, I remember thinking, is this guy serious right now?
Yeah.
There's a dead body, and he's worried about a loan.
Right.
It really speaks volumes about the twisted priorities within this world.
It does. And for Gravano, that perceived disrespect was the final straw. He explodes, threatening to kill anyone harboring the shooter, even innocent bystanders.
Wow.
It's a stark contrast to his earlier attempts to prevent violence this time. It's personal. And Frankie the Chico, another captain in Gravano's crew, echoes that sentiment, emphasizing that loyalty and revenge trump any financial concerns.
So they storm out of that meeting, ready to go to war. What happens next? Does Gravano just go rogue and start taking out Columbos?
Not exactly. Remember, they report back to Paul Castellano, the boss of the Gambino family.
Right.
And this is where the story takes another fascinating turn. Castellano, after listening to their account, makes a chilling decision. He authorizes war with the Columbos with a specific caveat.
What's that?
He tells Gravano if war breaks out, Mush is the first target. And when you take him down, tell him, here's your $90,000.
So he's basically saying, fine, collect the debt, but do it with bullets that's cold.
It is, and it highlights the ruthlessness at the core of this system.
Mm-hmm.
Castellano isn't just authorizing violence, he's asserting his control, demonstrating that even revenge has its place within the hierarchy.
He's pretty messed up.
It is.
So what about Stamani's family? Where do they fit into all of this?
That's where the true tragedy of the story unfolds. Gravano, despite being consumed by the need for vengeance, takes it upon himself to ensure Stade's family is cared for. He arranges the funeral, even shielding Stade's wife from seeing the extent of the damage to her husband's body. He offers to buy her out of their shared office, ensuring her financial security.
It's a strange juxtaposition, isn't it? This tenderness and care amidst all the brutality and talk of war.
It is, and it speaks to the complexities of Gravano's character. He's capable of immense violence, but he's also capable of genuine empathy and compassion. He even develops a close bond with Stade's youngest son, little Joey, almost like a surrogate son.
It's almost like he's trying to find some redemption, some way to make something good come out of this horrible situation,
Right.
but I'm guessing things don't end happily ever after for everyone involved.
Unfortunately, no. The ripple effects of Stade's murder, of that initial off-the-record hit, continue to spread, destroying lives. One of Stade's sons, unable to cope with the loss of his father, commits suicide shortly after the funeral. His daughter ends up overdosing on drugs, and another son moves to California, severing all ties with the family.
That's just heartbreaking. It really underscores the lasting impact of violence, how it can shatter lives far beyond the intended target. It really drives home the message of this video's title, How One Bullet Kills a Whole Family.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that actions have consequences, and those consequences often extend far beyond what we can anticipate. But there's one final twist in this story, one that adds another layer of complexity to this whole idea of loyalty and revenge.
You're talking about what happened to the actual shooter, right? The muscle-bound guy from the Columbo family?
Yes, Gravano never gets his hands on him. The Columbos, wanting to avoid the appearance of giving in to his demands for revenge, decide to take matters into their own hands.
They kill their own guy.
They do. It's revealed later by a cooperating witness, a go guy, a lower-level mobster named Mario Pigreco. They lure the shooter out under the pretense of talking and then execute him, burying his body on a beach in Staten Island.
So in a twisted way, the Columbos end up paying a price too.
Yeah.
It's a bleak outcome all around, with no real winners.
It is, and it leaves us with a lot to ponder about the paradoxical nature of the Mafia's code. Loyalty and violence are so intertwined that it often leads to decisions that seem self-destructive from an outside perspective.
So Gravano never gets his revenge, Stanley's family is shattered, and the Columbos sacrifice one of their own to maintain control. It's a pretty grim picture of this world.
It is, but within that grim picture, there are still these glimpses of humanity, these moments that make you question everything you thought you knew about these men and the lives they led.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that Gravano had lost all respect for Mush after that meeting, even though he couldn't get revenge for Stunny's death by going after Mush directly. I can't imagine that anger just disappeared.
Yeah, it's clear that the encounter left a deep scar. Gravano describes Mush as scummy, and you can practically hear the disgust in his voice as he recounts how Mush seemed more concerned with a debt than with the life of a fellow mobster.
Right.
For Gravano, who lived by this code of loyalty and respect, it was a betrayal on a fundamental level.
So what happens to all that rage? He can't go after the killer. He can't take out Mush. Does he just bottle it up?
Bottling it up doesn't really seem like Gravano's style, but it seems like he channels that anger into something more constructive. He focuses on protecting and mentoring Steve's remaining son, little Joey, almost as a way to honor his fallen friend and make amends for the chaos that erupted from that first unauthorized hit.
It's like he's trying to create some kind of positive legacy out of all this tragedy, right?
Perhaps it's a complex situation, and it's hard to say for sure what motivated Gravano, but his actions suggest a deep sense of responsibility, not just for Stuyve, but for his family, for the future that was stolen from them.
So, after diving into this story of betrayal, loyalty, and the devastating consequences of violence, what can we take away from it all? What does it really tell us about the Mafia?
I think Gravano's narrative offers this rare glimpse into a world that's often shrouded in secrecy and myth. It challenges our preconceived notions, revealing a system with its own complex set of rules, hierarchies, and codes of conduct.
Yeah.
Codes that dictate not just how they operate, but how they rationalize their actions, even the most brutal ones.
It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about human nature, right? The capacity for loyalty and violence existing side by side, the blurred lines between right and wrong, and the lasting impact our choices can have on others.
Exactly. And it reminds us that even in a world that seems to revolve around power and control, there's always a human cost. Storady's family, shattered by loss and grief, serves as a stark reminder of the collateral damage that inevitably comes with a life of violence.
Yeah. It's a story that sticks with you, that's for sure, for anyone who wants to dive deeper. We highly recommend checking out the full interview with Sammy the Bull Gravano on the Soft White Underbelly YouTube channel. The link is in the episode description. And if you want to hear more deep dives into fascinating and often unsettling stories, hit that like and subscribe button and stick with us on the Journeyman podcast. Thanks for joining us on this journey.